Hi, welcome everyone to Neurodivergent Nook. My name is Diane and I have autism and ADHD. I'm a previous teacher and head teacher and currently do coaching and tutoring and foster caring. And I'm here with Helen Neal. Hi, Helen.
Hello, I'm also autistic ADHD. I'm a qualified therapist, and I'm also going to hopefully become a psychologist because I'm a student with psychology, studying a master's at the moment.
Exciting.
Absolutely.
Times. Oh, and today our podcast is going to be about self-compassion. So I was wondering if you might want to start kind of, what's that like for you, your self-compassion?
So it's quite a complicated one, isn't it? So self-compassion for me, it kind of sits with self-care, but they are very, very different things.
Yeah.
So self-compassion is how you talk to yourself and how you treat yourself. So it's very much that inner voice, I guess, and how critical that inner voice is. And it's being able to forgive yourself, I think, and being compassionate about some of the things that have happened in your life and some of the things that you are doing. It's very much turning it inward.
Yeah, okay.
And caring and kindness for ourselves.
For yourselves. And are you good at doing that just now, or have you never been good at doing it?
So I've absolutely been terrible at it. So I think before my diagnosis, I was utter pants at self-compassion.
Yeah.
I think, and I mentioned self-care. One of the things that I would think it was giving myself time to be on my own. Yeah. And I thought, that's self-compassion.
That's it.
That's all I need to do. But actually, no, it's very much more than just giving time to yourself, doing things that you want to do. It is while you're doing that, how you're treating yourself. So are you, for example, going for a nice walk for an hour and then spending an hour in your head telling yourself about all of the things that you were supposed to be doing and haven't done because you're out on your walk?
That's not very compassionate.
No. Or are you actually just sort of staying in the moment and speaking kindly to yourself about how that walk is needed and paying attention to what's around you, and not berating yourself for going on the walk instead of, I don't know, painting the shed if that's the latest thing that you need to be doing. And it's really having that ability to challenge those thoughts is part of self-compassion. But actually to be forgiving of yourself when you do make a mistake and something does go wrong. And for me, that's the ultimate definition of being self-compassionate.
Okay.
It's like if you had made whatever mistake it is or done whatever it is that you've done, and you were actually talking about that to a friend, how would you treat your friend? It's really pulling yourself up and thinking about that. And then actually noticing how you're treating yourself for making that mistake or doing that action and thinking, well, no, I'm not useless. I'm not stupid. I need to give myself time, space and care because of that.
Right. And absolutely, that's the right thing to do, isn't it? How, like with the people that you work with as a therapist who are neurodivergent, who are great at that inner voice being negative and who are great at that have that inner voice that, can really feel like criticism, can't it? Or, rejection. And those thoughts can be racing, in the middle of the night because we're all really bad at sleeping. How do you support those people that you work with to not be lying there awake, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, criticizing himself?
And of course that is actually a really difficult and becomes a habit.
Yes,
Thinking negatively about yourself.
Yeah.
So the first step is actually to, first of all, notice it.
Yeah.
Recognize that you're doing it.
Yeah, sure.
And start challenging that. And that's a gradual process.
Yeah.
You won't suddenly stop doing it in 5 minutes.
No,
It's
that's years of doing
exactly.
it as well.
And I think that can be quite hard. And it was really hard for me. I'm incredibly impatient.
Yeah.
And you kind of also have that I'm either doing everything or I'm doing nothing attitude sometimes as well. So if it doesn't happen just like that, oh, well, I'm going to give up. That's definitely how I feel sometimes.
Okay.
Because of that impatience. And it can be hard to stick at it.
Yeah.
And I first started by noticing the positive as well. So it's noticing that you're doing the negative thoughts.
Right.
And then actually flipping that a little bit and noticing the positive in your life. Even really small things.
Yeah, sure.
Which can help change that mindset a little bit. And you're not always thinking about, oh God, I left my phone behind yet again. You might actually think, well, actually, this morning I made myself a really nice breakfast, and it's really small things.
Yeah.
And I got my kids out the door on time, and there was a few tears, but
but it
we
was
got
okay.
there, and it was okay.
Yeah.
And it's noticing that positive too.
And it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to do that in a, you've got a busy, if you have a busy life. But absolutely, as you're saying that, I can see, how essential that is, isn't it? It's, especially if you're neurodivergent or you work with neurodivergent people or support them. Because, we are, I think I've said this in another podcast, we are the best, aren't we? We win medals at putting ourselves down.
Absolutely.
And it's about learning, isn't it? Learning to try and flip that mindset a little bit, isn't it, really? So that, yes, you might, as you said, be aware or notice that you did, you could have done something better or differently. But actually also, in addition to that, what were your wins today? What went really well? Or like you said, even if it was just that delicious breakfast that you made.
Yeah. And also it's noticing it's that time. So, and I sometimes find that inner critic, and that when I'm not being self-compassionate, and it still happens, of course, it's, I say something like, oh God, I'm always forgetting things.
Yeah.
And actually I forget, ironically, the things that I have remembered.
All the hundreds of
And I did it the other day. I went into town to work and left my laptop at home. And it's like, and you're like, oh, actually, instead of berating myself, I remembered my purse, I remembered my handbag, I remembered the book that I was going to read for my study. I did forget my laptop. Yeah, granted, but I had to go back for it. But it's actually trying to maybe flip things a little bit in the narrative in your head.
Yeah. And just that little bit of kindness, isn't it? Just a little bit of kindness to yourself, without a doubt, especially if it's something like that. Because you do, my husband, he gets so cross with himself, like you just said about the laptop, when he forgets, which he does regularly. The phone, the keys, or whatever it might be, when he's trying to rush out the house, and then getting really cross with himself, rather than, well, actually, this morning you've already taken the children to school, you've had 3 meetings, you've walked the dogs, you've done that, and now you just happen to just mislaid your keys for 2 minutes. But that's the thing that you go to, isn't it?
It is. And like I said, it becomes a habit. You get used to doing that. So the more you start thinking about the positive things, the more of a habit that generates as well. And I do find, we've talked about this before, mindfulness can be helpful as well, and using sensory anchors in particular, because obviously autistic and ADHD, the sensory experiences I have are very, very regulating. And I think, and I'm sure this is the case for many, I can be more self-compassionate with myself when I am more regulated.
Totally.
If I am
Sure.
tired,
Yeah.
if I've had a long day and then you do something dotting like leave the hob on, and you're like, oh no, I have the hob on for the 900th time. And that self-compassionate voice is really harder to access. But even knowing that is helpful.
Yes, you're one step ahead, aren't you, with that awareness all the time, I think, aren't you?
Yes. And I do think that having a diagnosis has made a massive impact on me, because it, and I obviously you can speak to this yourself as well, but I always saw my memory as a personal failing, or the fact that it took me ages to start things. Or that, you know, sometimes I would blurt stuff out without thinking, you know, the classic ADHD autistic type traits. And I am much gentler and kinder to myself, because I know I am trying. If I want to try, you know, because I am also unmasking as well now as a sort of later diagnosed woman, and doing that with more people who I feel safe to do that with.
That's amazing. Well done.
But just having that knowledge about being cognitively different has made a huge difference to self-compassion.
And I think even if it's, you know, reading about it, isn't it, learning more about it so that you can then, that's okay to have self-compassion, because, you know, we're good, aren't we, as well as, you know, wanting to please, you know, people please and please others all of the time. But I think that if I've got the facts about it, that, oh, that's okay, I do need to give myself self-compassion, because I've got ADHD and autism, and that's important that I do that. That helps me a little bit. It's almost like I have to have the purpose to give myself self-compassion, because I kind of don't always necessarily feel worthy of it already. And that's, you know, that's a shame, isn't it? But I need to, I kind of have to have a reason why I might do that. And then the action be the bath, or the action be the dog walk, or the action, you know, be something, you know, something that I consider, you know, self-care as a result of that. But I think I've always found the self-compassion bit in the middle. That bit hard, really hard to do to myself.
And I think, you know, sometimes when I was going through therapy, exploring who the voice was, and who they sound like. And actually, I using so drawing or visualizing a self-compassionate other. So actually creating. And this doesn't work for everybody. Creating someone else that within you that can represent that. And it might be anybody. It might be an individual. And I actually often hear the voice of my therapist, you know, saying, Helen, why are you saying that about yourself? You know, and that's great. You know, if that works for me, that works for me. It highly won't necessarily work for everybody. Or it might be just you know, your younger self, maybe.
Love that. I kind of got the idea of like a little fairy godmother kind of fairy whispering around my shoulders right now, reminding me of some gentle, kind things.
And whatever works for you as a visualization, you know, and some people do draw self-compassionate other in therapy, so that might work for some.
Something more concrete,
something that externalizes it can actually be really, really helpful for neurodivergent people, because it becomes something that's a little bit more tangible, rather than it being this kind of thing that's really difficult to understand. Particularly if you're alexithymaic.
Just about to say that one, but I can't say it.
No.
My friend and I were talking about this the other day, because he is, and about that whole, you know, obviously he just can't even picture a red apple. And then how do you struggle with that?
That alexithymia is actually when you can't name your emotions. That's aphantasia.
That's the one.
When you can't visualize. But you're right. And actually, it's really important when you're working, you know, as a therapist with individuals that might be alexithymaic or aphantasia, is to understand that they have those cognitive differences. So me saying to them, imagine a self-compassionate, that's not going to help.
I can't imagine
because they can't imagine an apple.
Yeah.
So we have to be really mindful of that in the therapy room, and that's why it's really, really important to be aware of those cognitive differences, particularly around sort of support for self-compassion. And I think that's actually partly why it can be really difficult for neurodivergent people to be self-compassionate, because it's an abstract concept, the way we talk to ourselves, and the attitude that we have to ourselves. And oftentimes externally, if I think back to my childhood, and I'm sure you're the same, the number of times I was told off for doing things like forgetting stuff, making mistakes in my writing. And that is how we end up talking to ourselves.
Yeah. I think, isn't it something like this? Children and adults with ADHD are kind of given, thousands, aren't they? Thousands and thousands more negative comments throughout their whole life, but particularly as children. So that's just ingrained in them, isn't it? They expect people to make negative comments. I suppose, and then that's where that lack of self-compassion comes in, doesn't it? If that's all they know, they're not going to be positive to themselves, are they? Yeah, and I think that's we not only give ourselves a hard time, us neurodivergent people, but we're given a hard time, aren't we, as well?
Absolutely, sometimes. And I know that was I can't remember the name of the psychiatrist, but he calculated it based on an X number, and it was based on boys. So I think it's kind of, the general idea is that we're likely to get more.
Yes, that's right.
And we need to do more research into it to actually work out, the robustness of that. But speaking from lived experience, you experienced it and I experienced a lot of criticism. And it had a profound effect on how I spoke to myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing to remember, that can make a big difference.
And that, that's long-term consequences, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I think even, I'm 53 this year, and, done years of mindfulness and years of yoga and and all the rest of it. But I know that I don't say many kind things to myself every day. If I remember, I will smile at myself in the mirror in the morning, because that's something that I learned through mindfulness, and that's a really lovely way to start the day. Really lovely. Kind of giving yourself a bit of a high five in the mirror. But yeah, throughout the day is, just being a mum and, working and, being a wife and all those other things. I think my head just gets so full of looking after other people, or feeling like I need to look after other people, that I leave very little space for self-compassion. So that's definitely a takeaway for me personally today, that I need to do more of. And then, like you're saying, isn't it? And then from that, hopefully you've got those actions then, haven't you, of the self-care.
Yeah.
I know you said that today you didn't have your bath this morning, so you felt
No, and I felt really dysregulated because I didn't start the day off with a positive thing. Just like you were saying, smiling at yourself. I absolutely, sensory-wise, a bath to me is like, bliss. And I almost always start the day off like that, because it starts me off regulated. Sensory rest for me, and that's really important, which means that I then have that energy and regulation to be self-compassionate when I do the stupid things like leaving my laptop behind when I'm going into town to work, and I can actually go, and then not, because what I used to do is dwell on it. And it's that ability to, and it's really hard actually to stop that thought before it then takes hold.
It spirals, isn't it?
And I talk a little bit about, the thoughts that, because there's nothing wrong with having it, and it's not we should ban the thought from being there. It's more about letting it come in and go through,
and then go.
Rather than grabbing hold of it and then being really, really self-deprecating about ourselves.
I think, you hit hit the spot there when you said about, all of it, doesn't it? How we are self-compassionate in a day depends very much on how regulated you are and how tired you are, or whether, you're hormonal or whatever the reasons might be, or just you've had a really crap day. um, yeah, I think I might need to diarize something, to time something in on my phone to say, reminder, tell yourself something good today.
And gratitude practice has been proven to work, that pick 3 things. And of course, I started a gratitude journal. And guess what happened?
You forgot to carry
I forgot to carry it on.
What did it look like when you started?
I used to do it. It used to be the last thing I did before I went to sleep.
Lovely, yeah.
And actually, with my kids, we used to talk about one thing that they really enjoyed during the day, before they went to bed, so that they always had a positive thing. And it was the same for me for my gratitude practice. Is write 3 things down.
Okay.
Every night, and I did it for about 2 weeks.
That's good.
Well, that's quite good, really. And I guess actually thinking about those sort of negative thoughts, and as ADHDers and autistic individuals, we've got difficulties in that sort of inhibition.
Yeah.
And that applies to our thoughts. So, you've got one thought that comes, there are going to be others that follow after it.
Certainly will be.
And it's about sort of trying to bring in that conscious, cognitive, logical bit, in the front of the old brain, to try and combat that. And it's all very well me sitting here saying that, and there will be lots of people listening that say, I know, and I'm trying, I can't. And it's hard, and it takes time,
but practice
and
as well.
patience, and it's that habit of trying to form it. And there will also be people who have got so much happening in their lives that it's hard to grab
it
any time to be self-compassionate at all.
And there's another kind of group of people that's made me think of there, which are the children that I have or I do foster, whether it's short breaks, respite weekends, holidays, or live in foster children. Is that those children came into care because for whatever short time in their life, their life had been full of trauma and shame, and kind of that self-hatred that comes with that, and that constantly criticizing, is this all happening around me? Is it my fault? That person does that to me or behaves in a way like that to me, where they end up being abused. And to try and change and work with those children and young people to change those neurological connections that they've made about themselves is, sometimes that's a lifetime for some of them. Sometimes it's decades, isn't it, of therapeutic support and kindness and care, or becoming, going to the right foster carer, or whether that's ends up, being adoption for some, where they can learn to even begin to like themselves a little bit and not feel like everything is their fault. Before you can even vaguely begin to say, look in the mirror and, high five yourself.
Yeah. And it is, like we said earlier, it is really tough. But what you mentioned there is quite interesting about the, rewiring those connections. And something that I think is really important is there is hope for people to develop that self-compassion. It takes time.
Yes.
It takes love and care and relationships around individuals that show them that they are deserving. And I think that can be a really hard thing for some children and adults who've experienced trauma in their lives, that they don't feel deserving. So that self-compassionate voice has effectively been squashed.
Squashed, turned inside out and back to front, and and told how terrible they are for years and years and years. But like you were saying, we've got malleable brains, haven't we? And that can change over time for those people.
And neuroplasticity is a really important concept to understand. You can
Mm.
change within your neurotype. You don't
Yeah, yeah.
you don't have to be stuck within that, I suppose spiral is
Yeah,
possibly
yeah.
the right word.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's hard to find that hope when
Mm.
we're not saying that it isn't.
Yeah.
Um, it is possible.
Yeah, for sure. I think, that's something I've really enjoyed about fostering over the last few years is, working with young people and seeing that amazement and that joy when they learn to start loving themselves. And, obviously the most important thing is that they feel safe. That's the only thing. They spent all of their lives in crisis and in survival mode. And, it takes years to kind of work through that, and then if you can get onto that other side of there being some joy about who they are, and to start having positive thoughts about themselves, and what their inner voice says.
Yeah.
Yeah, needs a lot of support and, a network along that journey for sure.
Absolutely. And, it's not going to be solved in a 25-minute podcast.
It's certainly
We basically not really touched the sides.
no.
But we hope we've given some understanding and some thoughts and ideas to you all. So thank you very much for listening to
Thank
our
you.
journey down the self-compassion highway.
See more of it.
And or just notice that you're not doing it, and
Yeah,
that's a
true.
really, really
True.
good starting point.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you very much for coming, everybody.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, Diane, for being here. And we'll see you next time.
See you then.